So can you tell us a little bit about what happened, more detail on your death, how you got to where you're at now?
Yeah. So my anxiety with air traffic control started in tech school, man. Tech school and your first duty location. You can pick any. There's hundreds of jobs to pick from in the Air Force, man. The misconception about the Air Force is that everyone thinks everyone flies planes. This is not. They save the planes for people that have 4-year bachelor's degrees, at bare minimum. I picked the enlisted side, which you don't have to have a degree to do anything, but you have hundreds of jobs to pick from, and I picked air traffic control. The stress alone to get to the school alone, 50% washout rate, like a class of 20 people and you look around you and only 10 of you are gonna make it. That's daunting, man. And I remember my first day, I was so nervous. That whole process really humbled myself. I remember radar. Radar is one of the first things that you get rated in. And radar is, you have a scope of like 40 miles, you look on a monitor, you got 40-mile radius, and you have time, you have a 40-mile radius, so 80 miles from one end to the other, to decide what you want to do with that plane. And planes land at certain airports, and you gotta direct them to that airport wherever they're going. So my final radar test, I failed every single position. I failed approach, I failed arrival, and I failed flight data. No one's ever failed all 3 positions. Usually you only fail like one, like arrival, and arrival is kind of like you kind of group them, you kind of gather them together to the final runway. They're on final and they're just looking for that last, before they talk to tower, to talk to someone to line them up for the runway. And approach is just like anything that comes into that radius, that 40-mile radius I was talking about, they kind of direct them towards those airports, wherever they're going. I failed every single position. I realized at that point, I've seen a lot of people come and go already in that career field in tech school. I saw a lot of people leave, and I knew I had to make a decision whether I wanted to stay or I wanted to leave. And I chose to stay. I've failed at too many things before, man. Like I failed my first year of college, and I wasn't failing this. I made a determination I wasn't gonna fail. And I remember I talked to a master sergeant. He looked at my test, and I kind of explained where I was coming from. I told him, I know I did bad, but I know I can do better, and if you give me another shot, I won't let you down. He looked at my record one more time. He already looked at my test. He was like, look, Airman Hand, you failed every position, which doesn't happen very often, but you seem pretty humble, and you seem like you want to do good, so I'm going to give you another shot. I took that, and I made sure the next class, because I have to wait a couple weeks to get to the next class, I had to make sure that no one in the next class I go in failed. And I ended up creating study groups for everyone to understand what to watch out for in each situation and stuff like that, for the planes and stuff like that, and what the instructors are going to look out for each and every class. I almost predicted how the class was going to go for them before it even happened, and no one ended up failing. There was one instructor that got to me, and I think that caused the anxiety for me in air traffic control. His name was Mr. Brown, and he would always pick me out from the crowd. I don't know if it was because he was trying to help me or whatnot, or if he saw me as a weak link and he was trying to strengthen me up. But I remember this one scenario. I had a bunch of planes in the pattern, anywhere from heavies to fighter jets, and it was in a simulation. It wasn't the real thing. It was 5 screens put together, and from those 5 screens, it paints a picture of how a tower cab would look like. So you go in and you talk to these computers and you tell them where to go. And I was doing good, man. I was like, okay, this plane here, this plane there. You land here, you take off here. I mean, you weren't saying that. You had to say phraseology. You had to say, Cowboy 1, runway 3 right, wind calm, cleared to take off, cleared to land, stuff like that. So I was doing good, man. And I remember Mr. Brown, he was my instructor that day, and he told me I wasn't listening. So I took that in, and I was like, he wasn't really looking at an answer from me, but he was just telling me I wasn't listening. So I was like, I don't know, man. I'm listening to the calls. I'm calling them out correctly. I feel like I'm doing good. So I just ignored it. I was still doing my thing, and he's like, you're not listening. And once again, I'm like, dude, I don't know what this dude wants from me. I'm listening to all the calls and I'm doing all the calls correctly. I'm doing everything I can. I'm doing the best I've ever done ever. You know, that was a lot for me to do that good on a scenario. So third time, he comes up and he's like, yo, you're not listening, man. Don't talk to any planes until I tell you to. And I was like, okay, easy. You don't want me to do any work? I'm still getting paid. Whatever, man. So I go and stand there. I had this heavy aircraft, man. It was coming across, and I didn't say anything. Everyone watched me do it, and everyone was kind of surprised. And Mr. Brown comes up, and he's like, Airman, why didn't you talk to that plane that just went by? And I told him, I was like, sir, with all due respect, you told me not to talk to any aircraft until otherwise told. I'm just doing what you said. And then he was like, okay, stop the simulation, stop it, you know. And that's like the instructor's last, like, you fucked up, you know. Like, they get inside your head, man, especially with air traffic control. They get inside your head in basic, which is just part of the game. And with tech school, man, they take it to a whole nother level with that air traffic control. I mean, I know why they do it. They want to make sure that that person in that position on the job training is ready for whatever is about to happen, because anything could happen, man. You could have a slow day. You could have a day that just all of a sudden pops off, man. So I understand why they do it, man. But I think that anxiety from that tech school and that instructor carried over to my first duty location. I didn't expect it to until I was in that position, and I realized I was messing up. I wasn't grasping on concept as quickly as I should have, and I think I let that anxiety from that tech school get to me. So I was at my first duty location over in Phoenix, Arizona, Luke Air Force Base. You know, I got the airport diagram to prove it. I was there. I was separating aircraft there. But I remember one day in the elevator specifically, there was a watch supervisor. That's what they call the bosses, the managers there, is watch supervisors. And she specifically looked at me and was like, you know, are you okay? And I was like, no, not really, ma'am. I'm struggling with training and I don't know what to do. So they brought me into later that day, they brought me into they called it the chief controller office, which is like the manager of the manager, basically like the regional manager, if you want to put it in like McDonald's perspectives of like the tower, basically. So he oversees all the training and stuff like that goes on in the tower. And I remember specifically, man, what he said was like, you know, I can get any monkey to do this job. You know, I kind of was like set back by like what he said, but I kind of understood why he said it. He basically said like anyone can do this job. It's just like he needs people to do this job quickly. He needs to understand these concepts quickly, and I wasn't understanding these concepts as quickly as some people could. And that was no fault of my own, just I'm not made for the job, basically. I kind of used that as an out, and he was happy to keep me in the Air Force, luckily, because I didn't show any signs of me not wanting to be in the Air Force. That job wasn't for me, and he saw that, and I thank him to this day. There wasn't that many people that washed out of the tower specifically from that station up until I washed out. Then I noticed there was a lot of people after that washed out after me, and then there was people that washed out of radar. So there was an influx of people that weren't ready for their first duty, for their first on-the-job training experience. So I feel like a lot of people got pushed out of that tech school on purpose so they could push people out, which is a whole nother issue. I'm not going to get into the weeds of that. But basically, I was able to see that the Air Force is going to put me in the job wherever they need me.